please support us to check out pentheblogofficial. Like, share, follow, and subscribe. This is the incredible story of the axolotl that regrew its limb. And make sure to watch until the end, because healing restores function. You won't believe it. A few years ago, a group of scientists from the University of California, San Diego, led by Professor Emeritus of Biology, Gerald Thorpe, decided to conduct an experiment. They amputated the forelimb of an axolotl and then observed the process of regeneration. What they found was not only amazing, but also surprising. Amputation of a limb in humans has, in most cases, devastating impact. But this is not the case for the axolotl, a type of salamander native to Mexico. If an axolotl loses a limb, it can regenerate it completely, including the bones, muscles, nerves, and skin. In fact, it can even regrow the same fingerprints. Now that's what I call a superpower. In the experiment, the researchers amputated the left forelimb of an adult axolotl, leaving a small stump about 1 centimeter long. Then they waited and observed how the wound would heal. At first, everything seemed normal. The wound closed, and the skin over the missing limb looked like normal skin. But what happened next was really surprising. Around the area where the limb had been amputated, a bump began to form, which then turned into a bulge, which then developed into a fin. As time went on, the fin grew longer and wider, and the scientists could see that it had all the right structures, including tiny little toes just like the original limb. But that wasn't the end of the story. At first, the new limb didn't seem to be attached to the rest of the body properly. It kind of just flopped around loosely. But as the weeks went on, it became clear that the muscles and nerves had also regenerated, meaning that the new limb was now fully functional. Okay, so we got a new limb. But does it mean the animal has more limbs than before? Well, not quite. See, before the amputation, the axolotl had 4 limbs. After it regrew the lost one, it still only had 4 limbs. How does it do it? Well, there's still a lot that scientists don't understand about the regeneration process but it appears that when a limb is lost, special cells in the stump meaning they go back to being stem cells. These stem cells then multiply and differentiate into the various tissues needed to form the new limb. The whole process is controlled by a group of genes called the Hox genes, which determine the identity of each body part. For example, if the Hox genes are activated in the cells of the tail, it will grow a tail. If they are activated in the cells of the limb, it will grow a limb. But what's really amazing is that the regeneration process doesn't stop at the formation of the new limb. Nerves also have to be regrown and reconnected to the brain. Muscles have to be reconnected to the skeleton, and all these structures have to be put in the right place and work properly. So how do they manage to do that? Well, the answer might surprise you. As it turns out, the regeneration process isn't entirely under the control of the genes. The environment also plays an important role. For example, temperature and oxygen levels can affect how fast a new limb grows. Also, the presence of certain chemicals and even the behavior of the animal can affect whether or not it will regenerate its limb. But perhaps the most surprising thing about axolotl regeneration is that it doesn't need to remember how to grow a limb. In other words, the regeneration process isn't hardwired. Instead, it can learn from its environment. For example, if an axolotl is kept in water that contains chemicals that mimic the signals sent by nerves, it can regrow its limb faster and with fewer mistakes. This is because the chemicals help the stem cells in the stump know what to become. In this way, the axolotl is able to take advantage of its environment to improve the regeneration process. And finally, the regeneration process is not only influenced by the environment, but also by the behavior of the animal. For example, if an axolotl is kept in a tank with smooth sides, it is less likely to injure itself and therefore less likely to need to regenerate a limb. However, if the axolotl is kept in a tank with rough sides, it is more likely to get injured and therefore more likely to need to regenerate a limb. So what does this all mean? Well, studying how axolotls regenerate their limbs may one day help us to develop new treatments for people who have lost a limb or suffered a spinal cord injury. By understanding how axolotls are able to take advantage of their environment to improve the regeneration process, we may one day be able to do the same thing. Now check out Can You Survive Without a Body? Or watch Tiny Alien Creature Discovered in Siberia instead.